Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I ramble over Sonic the Hedgehog. Little thing I decided to try and do with everything that was going on. I had a tendency of, when playing particular action games, of just kind of sitting there in silence as I got really focused on it. So, yes, here we go. I'll be chatting over the game today, rather whilst playing it. Now, this was a bit of a surprise for me. I intended to originally play the game, just Sonic 4 Act 2, because I hadn't gotten through it, and I figured if I put it down as a Let's Play, I'd actually make progress. But then this happened. Metal Sonic. Metallic. The game decided to just throw this at me. I had apparently unlocked it somehow, though I was completely unaware, and the game just went ahead and just started playing it for me. So it was quite the nice little surprise. It's just seeing Metal Sonic here, and apparently him being absolutely destroyed at the end of Sonic's CD before the final boss fight. It's kind of out of nowhere, and here he is going from the little planet back to Mobius, I assume. That's the bit where I clicked. I actually kind of assumed this was an advert for, like, a remake of Sonic's CD they were doing, and when that music cut in, it was lovely. Just great to have it all back for a second there. I used to love that song. I would just listen to it all the time and sing along to it really badly, or try to memorize the lyrics. I remember writing it down on a A4 sheet of paper once, because I was that sad when it came to Sonic music. And I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, and we even get a little bit of a storyline going here. I suppose just explaining how he came back. It's a bit of an ass pull, considering he was assumed obliterated at the end of Sonic's CD, but hell, I guess he came back to Sonic Heroes and everything after that, so yeah, here we go. And this is clearly Metropolis Zone here, but they don't actually name the levels in this, oddly enough. And we never get to see him do the full power-up thing then. We never see Robotnik again, but off he goes, and we just basically play a whole game as Metal Sonic. Pretty much plays identical to regular Sonic, so there's nothing special about him, unfortunately. He gets cool new animations, but as far as I can tell, everything's the same. His momentum feels a little different, but then the momentum of the whole Sonic 4 series is different anyway. And yeah, we just get to playing it, and immediately I start getting hit and hurt, and I see these steam pipes, and for a second there I thought they were designed to hurt me as well, but I actually use them as a boost, so again, can't entirely remember how Sonic plays this. I can't really remember if I have a Metropolis Zone with Sonic 4 with Sonic himself. So maybe they hurt Sonic, but they don't hurt Metal Sonic, which is kind of a nice way of doing it, but though they go really over the top with them, as you see later on. It's pretty much one of the main mechanics of the Metropolis Zone, or Genocide City, as they originally like to call it. Always good to learn the old names and stuff. There was so much extra production stuff happening behind Sonic 2, and when you see it all and see all the things they missed out, like the Wood Zone and some kind of ice level, I believe, desert level, and the Hidden Palace. They apparently just had the entire Hidden Palace idea right there before Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and hell, you wouldn't see that until like 4 years later, I think. So back at a time when that length of time meant something for games. And yeah, just getting to play as him is kind of a nice little thing. It's a shame he doesn't do anything special. He has cool extra animations explaining his speed and stuff, but hell, you've got him going around Metropolis, and am I calling it right? Is it Metropolis? I get the horrible feeling I'm calling it by the wrong name, and I don't really want to stop everything to go check. I'm just going to call it Genocide City now, because that makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Look at me knowing all the background production stuff. But yeah, there's essentially nothing special about him. He's just Sonic, but in a metal body with different animations, and again, kind of cool to be able to play as him, but nothing really special beyond that, so. But the nice long levels, it's like each level did take around 4 to 5 minutes to complete, so this whole thing is 20 minutes of it, so 4 stages, and hate squashes like that. One of the things you fear the most in a Sonic game is something that squashes you. Badniks you can kind of handle because, well, you can at least take one hit from them. Squashes, just everything. It's like instant death, no escape, and there was always a fear of hitting them. It's like, even then, I didn't try jumping then, because I'm afraid of getting trapped underneath the squasher. Don't know why I'm calling it a squasher, I've never done that before, but pounder, slap like the big spikes in Sonic 1 that were slightly larger than the regular spikes, but would still murder you. And for some reason we've got the point textures from Sonic 3 in here, so they seem to like that enemy. He's kind of a good way of boosting, even though he's essentially useless, and I think here is the first time when I start to really screw up on it, so yes. Now this, you can tell what's happening. We're falling, edge of screen, dead. That, I felt, was like the most evil part of it so far. It was pure trial and error. There was no way of knowing whether or not you'd survive that until it got you. And it throws off my whole rhythm. At this point, I just die like 3 times in a row. Possibly 4 or 5. Although, it's here I noticed I actually get given a huge bunch of lives. I'm on 12 lives already. I think I only gained 1 from rings. Because I do start screwing up. And, the grasshoppers. I swear, never did that to me in Sonic 2. It's only in this they've ever done that to me. And that was kind of their original intent. So it's kind of good that they wrapped around that. And I think it's happening again. Yes, for some reason, those spikes seem to aim for you afterwards. And he got me again. And it's around here I realise I'm going to have to start focusing. Otherwise I'm just going to die a lot. So yeah, kind of a little unfair in that regard. There's a bit too much trial and error going on there. There was no way of knowing that jump was going to kill you until you had fallen down it. And I avoid it this time because hell if I'm letting that happen again. Oh. And those crabs, I swear those crabs were always designed for you to... Well, I suppose that was kind of the point. You see one later on and it's the ones with the springs on them, or the big star ball springs. Oh. Yeah, I make it. Again, unfair. Unless you're specifically looking up there. It's one of those things where it punishes you for your speed. You're supposed to be kind of burning through all these levels, and suddenly it's like, here's something to distract and stop you, and I guess that's the end of the level trick, so kind of to kill you right near the end, so I guess that's kind of good, but still annoying as hell. And at first I thought, oh god, that felt like it took forever, and then we're just going to have Act 2 of it. Only took, well, according to the timer, about 7 minutes, so and that's me dying a bunch of times in a stupid place, but yeah, Metal Sonic essentially plays one of each zone in turn, and again, I haven't really played Sonic Act 2 that much, Sonic 4 Act 2, so I'm not 100% sure if these levels are included in Sonic's games. I can't remember Act 1, because it was about 2 years ago when I played it. So yeah. And this seemed like an arbitrary mechanic, just giant balls dropping from the sky. I kind of like the way he starts. It's like, when he runs, he'll just hover for a few seconds and then burst into full speed mode. Kind of a nice touch. I always felt Metal Sonic was underused. Which is weird, because I guess he was massively used in the original Sonic CD game when he started. He kept showing up to annoy you, he showed up at the time things, and that was just me. But one place I have to say he was used excellently in my head, and I'm dead again, was the UK Sonic the comic. Personal favourite of mine, always a big fan of it, and I always felt like it was one of the best versions of the Sonic series. Maybe I'm a little biased because it's one of the main ones I had as a kid, being from the UK. It came out every 2 weeks for me, and there was like a 7-page strip of Sonic comic, of just, yeah, a Sonic story. Sometimes a little goofy, sometimes a little dark, and when they got the plot going, it was fantastic. They actually had it that Sonic and his little group of Tails and that lot went on a little bit of an adventure to the special stage where they got told Sonic's origin story, and when he came out, basically Robotnik had tricked them, and 6 months had passed, and Robotnik had just like taken over the world during that point, so suddenly Sonic was like a freedom fighter, and Yeah, I mean, you kind of see that in the Archie comics as well, but with this, it was... You saw it happen, essentially, Sonic missed the whole thing. He's like, you already had the regular Sonic adventures going, and then suddenly, Robotnik's actually won for a short while, and he stayed dictator of the planet for ages, a couple of years in real time. It took... Yeah, essentially, I'd actually kind of stopped collecting the comic, because in my head I'd grown up and no longer needed that type of comic, and just moved on. Yeah, it took a little while to actually get it back off him, but probably one of the best things in Sonic the comic, besides Commander Brutus, for anyone who knows who that is, was the Metal Sonic storylines, or Metallics. It was interesting with the Sonic the comic storylines in that they took liberties but in interesting ways. It's like, it's probably one of the only Sonic medias I found that actually paid attention to the concept of things like zones. So, you know, Sonic and his crew would regularly hang out in Emerald Hill Zone. Robotnik lived in Metropolis Zone. Oops, can't tell if I'm getting that right or not. I swear it's something different, but I can't think now. Genocide City! So yeah, they paid attention to the zones. Love this particular bit of animation. One of the best leading things I've seen in ages. And I like these little bowler gags as well. But yes, they... Lost my train of thought. They focused on actually keeping it along with the comics, and they did their own storyline in time, and they took various liberties. The way they handled Super Sonic was always interesting. Had him actually be a separate entity to Sonic himself, where he was batshit insane and would cause tons and tons of problems for them by just, whenever Sonic was forced to turn Super Sonic, everybody was at risk, not just the bad guys. And again, one of the best storylines had to be the Brotherhood of Metallics, where you first had Metal Sonic, also known as Sonic the Terminator in the Sonic the comics, because they like to give it names like that. And Sonic defeated him, but Robotnik basically, he either built a new version, or the old one was brought back. And then they made more, and then it followed the Knuckles Chaotic storyline to a certain extent. Never actually played Knuckles Chaotic, so I don't know how much like it is. But in doing so, they essentially created one of the best storylines. They actually took over the Little Planet for a short while, or the Miracle Planet as they called it there. Again, taking liberties. And it was like they essentially did a whole bunch of damage to the time stream, and it took a lot of trouble to fix it. And it was a really dark, really complex storyline. I can see it was only like 7 to 9 pages every 2 weeks. You got a pretty good storyline going on there. Fantastic artwork as well. But I always viewed the Sonic comic, I don't know what Metal Sonic was doing there. I thought it was a Chaos Emerald at first, but nope, he's just stealing an artifact from the Labyrinth Zone, and that's that. Maybe it makes sense in the regular game, I don't know. Maybe I'll play it later. But yeah, because it was that liberty of making their own little storylines up and interesting ones, but they also followed the games. So it's like from Sonic 3 onwards, you would actually have them like meet Knuckles for the first time, and him being tricked by Robotnik, and then later on it's like you have this events of Sonic and Knuckles, where they meet up with the other Sonic, who starts powering himself up using the Master Emerald, and it honestly felt like they were officially following some canon for the regular storyline of Sonic. It wouldn't be until years later that I realised that Japan basically didn't follow the storyline I was following. Always felt a real shame. It's like, it wasn't Robotnik, it was Eggman. It wasn't Planet Mobius, it was just an island on Earth. It's like they had this fantastic fantasy world, and they thought that it wasn't the right Sonic, so they got rid of it. And now everyone's Eggman. Sonic has always been on planet Earth. I like to think the Sonic X cartoon did a little tribute to it. I know it's very unlikely that they did, but you see at the start of Sonic X that they all come from some other location. Never revealed, never explained, but it's basically, it's not Earth, and then they travel to Earth. Caused some problems with some racing squad policemen, which were hilarious, but just kind of... If it was meant to be Mobius, that would be awesome, but it was all made in Japan, so very unlikely. But yeah. Oh. Not sure if people recognize this little area, but I swear there's an area in Sonic 2 just like this, and I used to spend ages trying to find it, because there was only one of them. It's one of these long U drops, and at the bottom of it, you could go right down a hole in the middle where an extra life was, or invincibility. I don't entirely remember, I just know there was a bonus there. And it basically meant whenever I replay the game in the future, I would go ahead and try and find it, spending ages at the bottom of each of those, killing off any momentum I had, which was a hard thing to get when you're in those drops. And yeah, just trying to explore little secret areas. So, one of the best things I found about Sonic the Comic, and I found out about it a while ago, but I came back to it today, and that's essentially what prompted this whole let's play this game, in the attempt to get it out of the way. Sonic the Comic actually still continues, in a bizarre form. It's, well, I say bizarre, not too bizarre. Not entirely in a way that people are expecting, I guess. Well, basically, it's still on the internet, and it's being done by fans. They've just sort of unofficially taken it on, and gone ahead and just made their own storylines for it. And there's about 40 issues at this point, so not a fast release schedule, but it's a webcomic, so you kind of expect that. Maybe they'll include a link about it in the description that you can follow. So, but yeah, they just try to carry on the storyline after however it ended. I did admit I kind of stopped at this point, because like I said, I grew up a little and decided I was no longer getting this particular comic. You kind of get to that age when even if you like it, you start deciding to declare it's crap, because you're a teenager now, and you know you can't admit that you like certain things, even though you secretly love them. I loved Digimon during that time. I watched it every week on CITV. Yeah, this rambling thing's going quite good. I'm actually talking now for a full 16 minutes non-stop. I sure hope it's recording everything. In pursuit of Sonic. Now, I flat out thought, oh, the Green Hill Zone. I'm essentially travelling backwards through the game. In a way, I sort of am. It's travelling backwards through Sonic 1 to some extent. You could say Metropolis was the Scrap Brain Zone. That was an evil thing to do. There should be a bridge there. And then you go to the Casino Zone, the Labyrinth Zone, the Casino Zone. You miss out Marble Zone, I guess, but now we're back in what's clearly a pastiche of the Green Hill Zone. And yeah, you thought it was kind of leading to the obvious boss fight of Sonic himself, a reversal of Stardust Speedway, I guess. Again, love how that started right at the beginning, that you're actually on Stardust Speedway Act 3 still. And it's just Robot Technic carrying on. It's a bit of an ass pull, because hell, after Sonic CD, you're not entirely sure how it particularly ends, but I completely messed that up. I don't know, I thought I was going back to get more momentum to get to the higher area, but I ended up taking the low zone instead. So yeah, there's these fans, and they've just gone ahead and continued making Sonic the Comic online. They've even got sort of approval from guys like Nigel Kitchen, who was one of the original writers for Sonic the Comic, and probably one of the only guys nowadays that would still particularly care about it. I imagine most of the editing staff and publishing staff have kind of moved on to other things themselves, and to them it would probably just be another kids magazine, so you always hear bad stories about how Sonic the Comic ended, because for a while in the UK, it was actually better than 2000 AD, and I say that like it's a big thing. It wasn't really. I mean, one thing you kind of have to realise with 2000 AD is that people seem to kind of forget it exists. It's still a niche audience nowadays. In a way, it kind of always was, but it had enough popularity with things like Judge Dredd just to keep it going, so, but most comic people I know in the UK don't really care for it. I don't think I've met a single other person, really, that's ever collected it. And even I just kind of go in and out of it at best nowadays, so I'm sure there's a big enough fan base, because it would have died otherwise, but it's never as big as it seems to be thought of in the UK as other people may think out in the country. But yeah, for a while Sonic the Comic was doing better than 2000 AD, and kind of hard to match that. And apparently the storyline goes is that Fleetway had a weird 5-year policy, that after 5 years, regardless of the level of success that one of their magazines is doing, they'll start to let it down, and so less stories got made for it, there was less production behind it, so suddenly you started seeing repeat storylines. And unfortunately, that was it. Maybe it wasn't 5 years, maybe it was 10, that would make more sense, considering the amount that was in there, so yeah, and unfortunately it just started to die like that, but So really glad in a way that people are keeping it going. I will have to make a point of reading some of it. So I had a quick glance through it, so it's just a few basic stories at the moment. They did a bonus story of Decap Attack, which was probably only ever famous because of Sonic the Comic. The entire game itself is kind of bad, but they put a nice jokey spin on it by having lots of parody information and an enemy that was essentially a Blockbusters contestant, which was hilarious at the time, I'm sure. Oof. We're very much coming to the end here, and this is unfortunately where things just flat out fall apart. Because here we are, Act 4, I thought maybe there'll be 5 acts, and well, yeah, that's unfortunately it. Here's the nice little ending sequence. There was no boss fight. I kind of wanted to race Sonic. At first you thought it's getting there, and off there, go there in the biplane, and quite awesomely here, I do love this little bit. Like, all the animals were cheering Sonic, it's like, oh wait, this one's the enemy. I chased them after them in Tails' rockets, which I've apparently just flat out stolen. And that is it. Had a quick look around afterwards because I thought, you know, there's gotta be something else to that. A boss fight, maybe. I can't believe they didn't include any boss fight. I mean, I know Robotnik should be the usual boss, and I suppose it's hard to make a Sonic-based boss fight. Because, you know, Sonic just on one screen wouldn't work, so it would have to be some kind of chase, but they could have just, like, done the reverse of Stardust Speedway, and they didn't. The game just ends here, and here's me kind of finding out if you have to press up so many times to find a new level. But nope, we're essentially done. You go back to single player, and weirdly enough, it's as if the Metal Sonic game never existed in the first place. And with that, we're essentially done. Yeah, I'll just end it there. Thanks for listening.